I had just closed my car door when I heard her voice. Smooth, low, and almost teasing. "Hi, neighbor. I divorced yesterday. Don't you want to come in for more than just coffee?" For a second, I froze, one hand still on my keys. She leaned against her doorway, framed by the dim golden light spilling from inside her apartment. Her silk blouse shimmered faintly, and the way she held her wine glass told me she'd been waiting. Not for anyone. For me. I swallowed, unsure if this was a joke or a trap. She was older, stunning in a way that didn't ask for permission. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and her smile carried something dangerous. Freedom mixed with loneliness. I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off, but she didn't laugh back. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly, as if testing how far she could push me. "Come on," she whispered. "It's just coffee. Or maybe not just coffee. You decide." Inside, her place felt different that night. The lights were low, music barely audible. A soft jazz tune that made the silence heavier. A second glass of wine was already waiting on the table, untouched. She moved gracefully, close enough for me to smell her perfume. That warm mix of vanilla and something sharper. I set my jacket down, my heart pounding far louder than the music. We talked, or at least she talked about her divorce, about how long she had been waiting for a moment like this, about starting over, but her words felt like smoke because the real conversation was unspoken. The way she leaned closer when she laughed. The way her knee brushed mine and lingered a little too long. The way her hand almost touched mine when she reached for the bottle. Each movement felt deliberate, and each second carried the weight of something forbidden. I caught myself staring at her lips when she spoke. She noticed. I know she noticed because she slowed her words, lowering her voice until it was practically a whisper. My chest tightened. I could swear she leaned just an inch closer, her breath warm against my skin like she was daring me to cross the line. Then a pause. Silence so sharp it cut through the room. Her eyes locked with mine, and I thought, this is it. This happening. My pulse raced. My hands trembled. My body leaned toward hers almost on instinct. But she smiled, sly, knowing, and pulled back just far enough to leave me stranded in that suspended moment. "Relax," she said softly, pouring more wine. "I just wanted company tonight. Or maybe I wanted to see if you'd flinch." I laughed again, but this time it came out broken, nervous. I didn't know if I was relieved or disappointed. When I finally left, the hallway felt colder, emptier. Her words replayed in my head, each one heavier than the last. "Don't you want to come in for more than just coffee?" I knew then this was no accident. She had opened a door, not just the one to her apartment, but something else entirely. And whether I walked through it or not, my life had already shifted. The next evening, she knocked on my door. Not loud, not urgent, just a soft, almost secretive rhythm. When I opened, she stood there barefoot, holding a burned-out light bulb in one hand and a half-smile in the other. "Could you help me change this? You're taller." It was such a simple request. Yet the way she leaned against the frame made it feel like an invitation into something far less innocent. I followed her in, and there it was again. The low lights, the faint scent of her perfume hanging in the air like an unspoken dare. The lamp was in her living room. She handed me the bulb, our fingers grazing. A spark, subtle but undeniable. I climbed onto the chair, pretending to focus, but I could feel her presence behind me. Close, too close. When I glanced down, she wasn't moving away. She was watching me carefully, silently. "You do this better than my ex ever did," she murmured, her voice brushing the back of my neck. My hand froze midair. She chuckled softly, then stepped even closer, steadying the chair as though I might fall. I didn't need steadying. What I needed was air. When I came down, we were face to face. So near I could see the reflection of the dim light in her eyes. Her breath touched my cheek, her lips parting slightly as if she might whisper something secret. Instead, she only smiled slow and dangerous. She offered wine again. "Just one glass," she promised, though the way she handed it to me felt like a test. We sat side by side on her sofa, cushions pulling us together until our knees touched. Neither of us moved away. She laughed at something I said, leaning in, her hand brushing my arm and staying there a moment too long. My chest tightened. Every second I thought, this is it. It's happening. But each time she shifted just enough to keep me on the edge of collapse. Then she leaned in again, closer than before, her voice dropping to a whisper. You know, sometimes coffee isn't enough. My hand trembled as I set down the glass. She noticed. Of course she noticed. And her smile widened as if she had planned every beat of this dance. Her fingers reached for the bottle, grazing mine. Her eyes locked. The silence was deafening. My heart hammered as her face drifted closer. Too close. Her lips hovered less than an inch from mine. I could taste the wine on her breath. The world slowed, and then a sharp knock rattled the door. Both of us jumped, the spell shattering instantly. She straightened, laughing nervously, brushing her hair back as if nothing had happened. I sat frozen, blood rushing in my ears, wondering if I had imagined it all. She opened the door. It was the old man from downstairs, grinning, holding a screwdriver. Thought you might need this since your new handyman's been around a lot. His words were meant as a joke, but the implication burned. She forced a polite smile, dismissed him quickly, then shut the door with a sigh. For a moment, silence. Then she turned back to me, her expression unreadable. "Where were we?" she whispered. I didn't answer. Couldn't, because I knew we were standing on the edge of something neither of us could take back. It was late when she called. Her voice was hushed, almost trembling, as if she didn't want anyone else to hear. "Could you come over? I don't feel like being alone tonight." I told myself it was just neighborly, but my pulse said otherwise. When I knocked, she opened the door slowly, as though she'd been standing there waiting for me. Her hair was down, her blouse loose, her eyes carrying a storm she couldn't hide. We sat by the window, the city glowing faintly beyond the glass. She held her glass of wine untouched and stared at it like it might answer the questions she couldn't ask. Finally, she whispered, "He wants to come back. My ex, he thinks we can fix it." I said nothing because what I wanted to say wasn't neighborly at all. She turned, searching my face. "Do you think people can ever really go back?" Her voice cracked, then softer. "Or do you think some doors should stay closed forever?" The silence between us was suffocating. I reached to take the glass from her trembling hand. Our fingers touched, lingered. She didn't pull away. Instead, her other hand brushed against mine deliberately this time. "You make it too easy to forget him," she said almost inaudibly. The room tilted, couldn't breathe. Her words hung between us, fragile and dangerous. She stood suddenly walking toward the balcony. I followed without thinking. Outside, the night air was cooler, but she didn't step back. She leaned against the railing, the city lights painting her in gold and shadow. I stood close, too close. She tilted her head toward me, her hair brushing my shoulder. Sometimes I wonder if I'm allowed to want this, to want something else, someone else. Her eyes locked onto mine, and the distance between us evaporated. Her hand found my arm, sliding down slowly, deliberately. My breath hitched. Every nerve screamed to close the space between us. Her lips parted just barely, and she leaned in. The moment stretched, trembling, suspended. I thought, this is it, this happening. But then, just as her lips hovered a breath away from mine, she froze. Her eyes flicked past me over my shoulder. I turned, the shadow of someone moving in the courtyard below, a figure watching. Her grip on my arm tightened. "We shouldn't." She started pulling back. My chest ached. The world had collapsed in on that unfinished moment. She stepped inside quickly, shutting the balcony door behind her, drawing the curtains as if to hide the whole world from what almost happened. When she turned back to me, her face was pale, her smile forced. "Stay a little longer. Please just don't leave me yet." I nodded, though every part of me burned with the weight of the kiss that never happened. And I knew we were no longer just neighbors. We were secrets waiting to break. It started with laughter. She had invited me again, this time under the pretense of helping her choose music for the weekend. But the truth was obvious the moment I stepped inside. The soft glow of candles, the half-open bottle of wine, the way she leaned against the sofa, waiting. We sat close, scrolling through songs, though neither of us cared about the playlist. Every time our hands brushed on the phone screen, a current shot through me. She pretended not to notice, but her lips curved into that faint, knowing smile that only made it worse. "You're too tense," she teased, pouring me another glass. Her fingers grazed mine as she handed it over. "Relax. I don't bite." I laughed nervously, but the sound came out uneven. My chest was tight, every breath shallow. She shifted closer, her bare knee brushing mine again. Lingering this time, the room shrank, every inch charged. Her voice dropped lower. "Do you always look at people like that?" I didn't realize I'd been staring until she said it. At her lips, at the way her blouse slipped just enough to reveal the curve of her collarbone. Heat rushed to my face. She noticed. Of course, she noticed. Slowly, she leaned in. Her laughter faded into silence. Our faces were inches apart, the kind of distance that begged to be erased. Her breath touched my skin. My pulse roared. This is it. This time it's happening. Her hands slid to my arm, tracing lightly, almost trembling. I felt myself moving closer, closing the space until I could taste the wine on her breath. My lips hovered a heartbeat from hers. But just as the world stilled, she froze. Her eyes flickered with something. Fear, desire, regret, all tangled together. And then, with a sharp inhale, she pulled back. "I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Not yet." The words sliced through me. My chest burned with the weight of what almost happened, of what we both wanted. But she refused to take. She stood quickly, brushing invisible dust from her skirt, turning away as if the moment could be erased. But her hands trembled. I saw it. I felt it. I sat frozen, staring at the glass in my hand, the taste of her almost kiss still haunting my lips. Finally, she spoke again, softer, almost pleading. "You should go." The walk to the door felt endless. She followed, her eyes never quite meeting mine. At the threshold, I hesitated, praying for a sign. Anything that meant the door hadn't fully closed. Her hand hovered near the frame as if she wanted to touch me but couldn't allow herself. Our eyes locked, the silence screaming. For a second, I thought she'd pull me back in. But she didn't. I stepped into the hall. The door closed gently behind me, leaving only the echo of everything we hadn't done. That night, I lay awake, every detail replaying. The candles, her voice, her lips so close to mine. It was unbearable, forbidden, perfect, and I knew the next time one of us would break. The storm outside rattled the windows when I heard raised voices in the hallway. I opened my door just enough to see him, her ex, pounding on hers, his words sharp, angry. She stood there, arms crossed, her face calm, but pale. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You think he cares about you? He'll get bored just like I did." Her eyes flicked sideways. To me, she had known I was there. For a moment, the world tilted. She didn't deny him, didn't push back with anger. Instead, she whispered, steady and final, "I don't need you anymore." And then she closed the door in his face. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm. Then she opened her door again. Not for him, but for me. "Come in," she said softly. Her voice trembled. Not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Inside, the room was lit only by the glow of a single lamp. She leaned against the wall, one hand clutching the stem of her wine glass, the other pressed to her chest as if holding her breath inside. "I can't do this alone anymore," she whispered. "I don't want to." I stepped closer slowly, like approaching the edge of a cliff. Her eyes followed me wide, unblinking. Her glass slipped from her fingers onto the table. Forgotten, she reached out, her hand finding mine, trembling as if the smallest touch might shatter her. And yet she didn't let go. Her lips parted, her face lifting toward mine. The space between us dissolved. Closer, closer, the world shrinking to nothing but her breath against my cheek. This is it, finally. But just as my lips brushed the edge of hers, she pulled back, resting her forehead against my shoulder instead. Her body pressed into mine, fragile and fierce at once. "I need someone who sees me now," she murmured. "Not who I was, not who I pretended to be, just me." My chest ached, my arms hovered around her, afraid to hold, afraid to let go. "If I step inside now," I whispered, my voice shaking, "everything changes." She leaned back, eyes burning into mine, and without a word, she pushed the door wider, leaving it open between us. The storm raged outside, but the silence inside was louder. I stood frozen, knowing that one step would cross a line we could never return from. And yet, as her hand lingered on the doorframe, her gaze daring me to choose, I realized the truth. The decision had already been made. The screen fades,